Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's pick a card reading was the suggestion of a viewer. It was a wonderful idea that I immediately wanted to sort of think about doing, which was a dialogue between your higher self and your inner child. And I think expressly, as the title for the thumbnail will probably say, messages from your higher self to your inner child. Because when we think of our inner child, it's usually that sort of form of innocence and sometimes naivety, the part of us that we protect or need to protect when we're young, often the part of us that we need to process and heal as we grow. So I feel it's probably primarily here the higher self as a part of you that sees the whole arc of your life, talking to the inner child, which was about the potentiality and all that is innocent and still open as potential for you now, even now, depending upon and in a sense, regardless of whatever age you're at this point. So we're going to look at the perspective of your higher self and then the perspective of your inner child, how they speak to each other. And we're also going to look at your conscious self in terms of almost being a mediator between the two energies and how you might manifest in this world. And we'll look at some healing and blessings and so forth along your path. So to help with the choice, you can, of course, go to more than one reading if you feel drawn to more than one. There may be quite a lot your higher self wants to say to your inner child, or there may be particular aspects of your inner child that show up in one reading and others that show up in another, for instance. So go to more than one if you feel it. But to help choose, part of the structure at the beginning, we're going to sort of get a sense of the perspective of your higher self and the perspective of your inner child. And one of the cards for your higher self that I shuffled and intuitively drew for each pile is shown here as part of the choice. So for pile number 1, we have Spiritual Warrior. For pile number 2, we have Guidance. And for pile number 3, we have Alliance. So it may be something about that imagery or that sort of energy that draws you to a reading or readings. There could be other ways you choose. Whatever way works for you is, of course, fine. When you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I have the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, part 1, to your reading. So as I say, we have your higher self here. And what the structure of this, to give me a sense about the key message and the key perspective, is a couple of cards around the higher self's manifestations, a couple of cards around your inner child's manifestation. And then I'm using a beautiful new oracle that I've got called, I think, I may not be pronouncing this correctly, but I think it's Darlathea oracle. The details about this oracle, if you're interested in it, are in the description box below. And for anybody who is interested, it has a number of different archetypes, plus it also has the major arcana and the court cards of the tarot. But I expressly shuffled and dealt out and then shuffled again to get a set of the archetypes coming from that deck for this particular reading. So the fact that you came to the Spiritual Warrior probably sums up quite a lot of the energy here. It's interesting, we have Spiritual Warrior and Resilience here. Your higher self is very, very strong. It has a very strong spiritual focus, very strong guidance with the spiritual guidance, and able to go into the depths and really understand yourself and others, and a real healing presence with the shaman here. But it is not an easy journey. I think that one of the things that your higher self will be saying to your inner child is that you have the strength to overcome whatever wounding you might have had when you were young, whatever issues may have occurred, whatever you're still carrying in that space, and that you come from a very pure space. It's very interesting to me that we have beautiful soul over here. So there is a beauty that comes from somebody who has a spiritual purpose and will stick to that and will be resilient in doing it. So there's a couple of messages for here. The Spiritual Warrior says a spiritual warrior's only armor is the strength and power of his heart. Now, I actually think this is getting to the heart. See how here with the beautiful soul, there's hearts with the sunglasses. It's like that sense of innocence and caring about things and thinking there is a better way. Your higher self wants to say there is. There is. And if you have felt here, like in a tangle, like you when you were young and even now in terms of your inner child, that the world is often hostile, and you may think that with the Hydra, and that problems just keep recurring, which may also happen with the Hydra, because the Hydra historically, or the Hydra sort of in terms of its mythology, is that you chop off one of its heads and another head grows back. So I think there's a sense here of a lifelong warriorship, a lifelong sense of a battle. But on the other hand, it is towards what is true, what is good. And the Hydra in many ways, because it is scary with all its sort of heads and you're chopping them off, it's sort of like the recurrence of what is not true and what is not spiritual. But you also have this sort of exploration energy. So I think that your higher self is saying that that's the thing to tap into. That's the thing that connects to your soul, because yes, there will be problems. Yes, there will be issues. It comes with the territory of being this. This is also why we have resilience. When the world meets you with indifference, you set in motion a better way. That's what you do. Even if it sometimes does feel to your inner child, to that really precious and innocent and pure part of you that my goodness, how do I ever get through all this? I think that I've achieved something and then something more comes up. But always exploring, always staying true to your heart and to your soul mission is the way to do it. It's like, of course, if you're going to be an explorer, of course, if you're going to go into the terrain, which you do, here we have the shaman and here we have the explorer. The shaman goes into all the various levels of the sort of liminal space and right to the very depths and right to the heights as well, and explores and heals and understands. And there's a very strong sense around shamanism of understanding yourself and your own soul, but doesn't do it alone, does it with guides. So I think this is your spirit, your higher self is saying it's a guide to your inner child, but beyond that, that because there is a purpose to what you're doing, because your core soul is about the strength to explore and bring in the heart, even when the world is full of sort of difficulties and scary sort of elements sometimes. You've always had guides. I very strongly feel that for many of you, may have found something in your earlier life quite difficult. You may have felt like the less favoured child in a family. You may have felt different in school. You may have felt caught up between sort of issues. I get with these two horses sort of running away and the child is sort of tied up. I get the sense almost maybe that some of you came from broken families, that sort of thing. And there always seemed to be something, but on the other hand, you never lost this sort of sense, I'm going to explore. This is an interesting energy with you, actually, that I feel like you're very, very brave. And I think the inner child, even the inner child is that. It's like your tendency as a child would have been to go, where do I find something better? What can I explore? What can I do to make things better? Which is the sense of resilience here as well too. Every time there was a problem, and you weren't alone. So I feel very strongly that most of you had very strong spirit guides all the way through. And if there were problems that came up, there was a protection. And if you went exploring, whether it's into the sort of liminal realms as your higher self does, or whether it's just out into the world, you were always protected. But the protection didn't mean everything was easy. It didn't necessarily mean that you were always just going to be able to sort of sail through life. Part of this whole resilience in your warriorship was to understand there were problems, and it is the nature of life that there are problems. It is the nature of people being together, and the spiritual development, the spiritual struggle is all around understanding that until we all finally ascend, there is going to be hydras to deal with. But this is the sort of sense of always seeing that as an exploration. So I think that your higher self wants to say to you, yes, sometimes your inner child feels weary. Sometimes your inner child feels like it had to be grown up before it needed to be. Sometimes it feels like it's almost impossible to have that innocence and belief and faith, the rose-coloured glasses there, and the wish to explore when there's always something. But this is part of your journey, part of your understanding, and you're very, very protected. So let's get a little bit more information. So I'm going to use 3 different tarot decks. First tarot deck I'm using is the Sirius Tarot. I feel like it's a very celestial, high-order tarot deck, so I'm going to use that for your higher self, sort of saying their key messages or understanding of what your inner child is dealing with here. Then I'm going to use the Pythia Tarot to be your inner child's response, and then I'm going to use a third tarot, which is, I'm calling the Portal Tarot. It comes from a tarot designer, that has an Etsy shop that doesn't necessarily name all his tarots, but I'm calling it the Portal Tarot because it looks like going through a mirror portal into another world. And that's going to be your conscious self, how it brings it all together. So firstly, a little bit more from your higher self as key messages now for your inner child. 10 of Swords reversed, Queen of Cups, 6 of Swords reversed, the Hierophant reversed, the 10 of Pentacles reversed. Okay, It's very much picking up the energy that I'm sort of saying here. For many of you, there have been issues around family. There could be generational trauma, that kind of thing with Ten of Pentacles there. Or it could be that one of the things that you may struggle with and your inner child might struggle with is getting a firm foundation. When we look at the explorer as being part of the nature of the inner child, and then the shaman, as I say, which is a similarly sort of explorative type of energy. One of the things that can come with that, and I think your higher self is saying that, is that sometimes it's hard to really feel like this is home, this is where I'm going to be, I'm going to build a legacy, I'm going to build a foundation here. You may be an innate traveller, sort of spiritually, in the world, in your imagination, all of those sort of things. And that might be okay. Certainly connecting with the Hierophant reversed, you may have a very different way of looking at spirituality to what you were brought up with. You may have, in fact, separated out from that. And you may not really feel like you know what your destination is. One of the sort of energies I get very much with this Tangled and with the Hydra is that sense that, like you never fully know what direction you're going in. You're still exploring or what you're going to find. And you never sort of say that's the end of the journey. So I feel like there's a sense of restlessness. I think your higher self is saying your inner child, because of that explorative thing, has a restlessness. And as I say, the bravery to deal with the problems that comes with that. The only important thing to do is to stay true to your emotional heart with the Queen of Cups, and you can do that. And it could be difficult because with the Ten of Swords reversed, there's always a lot of drama around you. I do feel for some of you, with these two together, you've come from a broken home. So it's not going to be true for everybody, but I feel for some of this energy came from a broken home, from not really knowing which direction to go in, being pulled between your two parents potentially, trying to sort of keep that sort of sense of love and energy going. And it built in you this great resilience, this great strength, and this understanding that the spiritual journey, the spiritual warriorship is the important thing. But that life, I think for most of you, your inner child feels, that life is always going to have shadows to deal with. And the inner battle between your inner child's nature is a side that wants to say, like the Fool in the tarot, open, innocent, ready, game for anything, and the side that sort of feels a bit world weary. So that's why I think your higher self is focusing a lot on understanding you are protected, understanding you have the skills to do this that many people don't, and that the key thing for you is around resilience. So I think your inner child would be getting the message of you have everything you need to do this, and you'll always have that kind of dichotomy that you're dealing with in this life between the sort of exploring sort of open-hearted part of you and the part of you that understands that there's always a price associated with that. So let's see what, using the Fifth Year Tarot, what your inner child wants to say in response to what the message from the higher self. Knight of Cups, Wheel of Fortune reversed, Three of Cups reversed, Judgment reversed, Page of Swords. Okay, so actually your inner child's been quite clear with your higher self what messages they want. And so hopefully this will become quite clear as we look through some of the blessings and other things later in the reading. It wants a very clear message. It feels like there isn't a clarity. It says, like, I get on one level what you're saying, but I really think that I tend to sort of like it seems to be more, you're talking here a lot about resilience and the warriorship and the power of a shaman and so forth and unprotected. That makes me feel like I'm really stuck in always dealing with the problems rather than the exploration. I want a bit more clarity about how to find my purpose, because with Judgment reversed, it's like there's a calling. Your inner child feels there's a calling they have, but they don't know what it is and they haven't taken that up yet. They're also saying that the problems that I'm dealing with keep me caught in a pattern where I feel like I'm always dealing with the Hydra. It's just over and over and over. I don't feel like I can turn that forward, and I don't feel like I can connect with my heart to the degree that I would want to. So I think that your inner child is saying, I kind of get what you're saying, and I get that it's my calling, but I'm finding it hard to connect that open heart and exploration to what I'm actually meant to do, because this feels like the warrior, but this feels like it just goes over and over and over, and it takes the joy out of things. How do I actually do that? How do I reconnect with my heart? For some of you, it may even be that you want to fall in love. And it's hard to do that when you're constantly being kind of exploring the world and moving on, and where you've been taught that relationships and things like that don't necessarily like last, or are difficult to make last. So you want to connect to that, but there's maybe even something, maybe you've even had something around love that hasn't worked out recently, and you're just saying, I'm confused. So the inner child is saying, I see the pattern is all too clear. I kind of know that I'm protected. I'm not that worried about that, but I need more clarity about what I'm meant to do. So let's use the third tarot and see what your conscious self could do to mediate between this. Because, to say, your higher self is sort of saying, you just need to go with the flow. This is who you are. Stay true to your heart, and you will always be able to sort of move forward, even if it's not clear. And your inner child saying, I want some clarity. Thank you very much. So let's see what your conscious self can bring to the table. 10 of Cups, 5 of Pentacles reversed, 3 of Pentacles reversed, 4 of Cups, Ace of Pentacles reversed. Okay, so your conscious self agrees with your inner child, actually. So your higher self, in a sense, and I often say this about the soul, the soul is sort of like a little bit dispassionate about what we suffer because we're always developing. The higher self to some degree has a similar thing. It's going like, you're going to be guided, you're going to have what you need, just have to be resilient. This is a spiritual war, and you're a warrior, and you're very strong, all of which is great. But as I say, the inner child's going, yeah, but I just feel like there was a lack of guidance. Like either you didn't connect with the religions that you grew up with, or your family, what your family does. There's something where you felt you were off exploring and you didn't find the grounding. And so it just feels shifting sands. So your conscious self says that's actually what you have to focus on. That you understand what the higher self is saying, that you're protected, that you have the skills and the abilities, very highly spiritually advanced, very strong. But the focus right now needs to be on finding a kind of settled, happy state that you can grow in. So it's like you need to find home, whatever home is to you. That will help you. Once you've worked out what home is, that will unlock what is the material thing that you're meant to do. At the moment, you haven't set down roots in some way. Even if you are in a family at this point and married and all of those sort of things, there's a sense of, do you truly feel at home there? Because your exploration should be towards that. I think that's what your conscious self is saying. You should have a destination. How you go about getting there is a whole other thing, and you can be very explorative and very open, but you should have a destination. It's like you haven't defined that yet. And therefore, emotionally, you're feeling a bit stuck. You can't find your calling. Your calling should be the home. You should be thinking, what is home to me? And it's going to be with other people. You've got to find the people that emotionally you could connect with, whether it's as a family or as friends, it doesn't really matter, or in a love relationship. But this is a lonely energy. You're meant to actually create the heart there that brings you towards others. That's the key thing. So I think your higher self, as I say, a bit dispassionately is going, you're strong enough to do all of this, and that you're here for a purpose, and it will evolve. Just let it evolve. But your inner child's going, I need a direction. So your conscious self is saying, go towards the heart, go towards something that would feel like home to you. So I hope that that's sort of starting to give us an idea about how to do that kind of thing. What I also want to do then is start to give you some advice. So this is advice now. If the higher self has heard this and understands that it's sort of, as I say, slightly removed view is still valid, but it needs to help with this, what energy could you heal within yourself, within your inner child in particular, to start to move towards what is home to you emotionally and materially? Oh, the inner child, yeah. There's definitely something. I do think if you come to the right reading, there's something that happened in childhood. And as I say, it could be very subtle or it could be very extreme. It could have been a broken home or something like that. But there's something, and I do think as a child you had that sort of sense of bravery and exploration. It may even have been that you've ceased to do that. Like you might have been the sort of child that was explores, and now you hardly go out or something. There's something with the inner child about understanding and getting the balance back there. And your inner child needs this. As I say, your higher self has been a little bit too dispassionate actually. And needs to understand. And I think call upon the spirit guides that are connected to your higher self. They will help you with this as well. They will understand, just as your conscious self does, that the child needs a sense of home. That is what needs to be healed. So let's see what your inspiration could be. Some energies to inspire you towards finding home and finding that heart center. The challenger, opposition, reflection, friction, polarity. Okay, so there is something in the battle that helps you do it. And I guess this is where the mediation comes with the higher self. The higher self has a point here. There is something, you are here for a battle. You are a spiritual warrior. So fighting that Hydra is part of it. It is part of who you're meant to be. So you can't necessarily walk away from that. It's partly what inspires you. But it's not necessarily the thing that's going to bring you to your home. So let's see if we can get another inspiration to help with that. The opening, bridge, discovery, eureka, path. Yeah, it's finding the path. So when you're being the explorer, it's having a destination in mind. I think that's the thing. I think there's something for most of you in your childhood or your inner child is dealing with where something happened or you're in an environment where the concept that you could be sure what your destination was very hard. As I say, something happened around your family or school or something. And so that concept is not there. So it's almost like aimlessly wandering and just dealing with the issues and just that. It's a very world-weary feeling for your inner child. But if you start to say the pathway, the bridge is towards something that I want, you start to envisage that and you allow your inner child to say, I should have that. I'm not just about the wandering the battle. I'm also about finding my people, finding my home. That's the opening. But you are always going to be, even when you find your people, you're going to be the one who's protecting them, just as you're protected. So I think it's sort of understanding that. The opening is connecting to what would be home for you. So let's get you a blessing as well. A blessing from your higher self to your inner child. A blessing to shield and safeguard you. Look, it's saying it over and over. You are protected. Very, very strong spirit guides. Like we all have spirit guides, but I think they come depending upon what our purpose is with different levels of strength. And maybe that differs from life to life. But you are protected. It's saying over and over. The battle with the Hydra is nothing to you. It's more that is a distraction from healing your inner child. But you are always going to be protected there. Therefore, start to let your inner child feel able to articulate what it wants in terms of a home. And I feel like the ravens here, they're kind of messengers, with the shamanic. I think you could be connected to ravens or crows in shamanic terms. They're messengers and they're information to you to help guide you in the night in the exploration to find your home. Okay, so also to help you, let's get just a couple of spirit guides. So we'll get you a divine animal and we'll also get you an angel or other sort of deity. So an animal beyond, I would say, ravens or crows for you that can help your inner child in finding its home. Sea otter, transformation. That's there's something about water then. There's something about the heart, the heart, the emotions. That's and cleaning that out, like cleaning out that which is not working, cleaning out a sort of sense that, yes, even if the battle is always going to be there, you can wash it off yourself and you can transform. So this is a deeply transformative thing. It's to get this back in balance, because I think at the moment it's very much tilting towards dealing with the problems. Let's also see an angel or other deity to help you. Archangel Christiel, higher consciousness, Christ-like light. Yeah, you're a light worker. You're a spiritual. This is the kind of order of being that is watching over you. What you are doing is to the light. But I feel like you feel like you're in the dark when you're exploring. It feels like it just feels very, very much in the shadow world, the shamanic world, all that kind of thing. But I think there's also the higher order energy that is there to guide you. So I feel like there's a combination actually of air and water. I don't know, some of you may have that very strongly in your charts, but you don't have to. But thinking about what you believe with the air and what you feel in your heart is the way to connect to those energies and those guidances. And speaking of what's in the air, or what could be in your chart, let's just get you some guidance from the stars as well. Uranus, yeah, transformation, change. There is a need for change. Like, I just feel like this is saying your inner child has recognized something maybe that your higher self is not really seeing. So it's almost more here that your inner child's talking to your higher self and saying, I need change. I need a different form of communication. It's about communication. You're asking for kind of inspiration and communication so that you can change, so that you can find the pathway. Waning gibbous moon, the calm after the storm, gratitude, sharing. So yeah, it shouldn't always be a storm. This is the bit. The exploration, the fun. Yes, there's going to be storms all the time because that's part of who you are, dealing with those sort of things. You're strong enough for it, but you want to get more information about how to find that place where you can be happy, that place where you could say it's the calm after the storm. And the second house, how do you create the life that you want? For some of you, the battles may be very second house oriented. They may be about, how you connect your ethics and your beliefs with, how you would make a living, for instance. So for some of you, it might be that. It might be constantly in sort of conflict-based work or something like that. But it's because you've come from this balance to start with. So again, it's also what's the direction? Are you following what your true ethics are in terms of what you want to do? Is that the pathway for you? Okay, so I think those are fairly clear sort of messages, but what we want to end up with is just from your higher self to your inner child, just a final piece of advice around your magic and the magic that your inner child has always had that can help you find that home and find that heart, so that you balance off the spiritual warrior with the explorer and the heart-centered person. Ask for forgiveness. Okay. So I don't think you have necessarily, it's possible for some of you that you have actually, in the conflict and dealing with this, felt that you've kind of taken on battles and done too much. Some of you might feel that, and you might feel like, what's the point? I'm always battling, and therefore I'm always in conflict with others. So I think there's a kind of inner ask for forgiveness on this. This is all about the spiritual pathway being worked out. There could be things that you need to ask your higher self for forgiveness for. Your higher self may need to ask forgiveness, in fact, to your inner child and say, I understand, I've actually put too much on you. So any of those things could be happening. But again, we have this raven. I feel like there is something where you feel, maybe you feel that some of the burdens are your own because of choices that you've made. So ask for forgiveness to reconnect back, because you're actually fighting a battle that is bigger than you, but is also core to you. And so there may be something in that space as well, but it's a blessing for you. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with guidance, this very gentle looking spiritual guide energy, which is obviously your higher self. And it talks about spirit guides and celestial beings work with you, trust in the gift of guidance. So I think your higher self is saying that you have very strong spirit guides, very strong connection to the celestial realms. But I think your higher self is wanting to talk about how to reconnect to who you truly are, because I think that you're in a complicated situation. And why I say this is that we also have karma cleanse, liberate yourself from karmic patterns of the past, live a life of creative choice, which is really what the inner child can get to. In a way, I think that the higher self would be difficult to get to, because the inner child is the creative purpose. It's the innovator. It's the explorer. All of those sorts of things. But you are in some sort of a battle. It's really interesting because Pile 1 had some battle elements as well too, but this is a different message, so it's a different stage. You're in a very complex environment. We have the schema energy with the warrior. Now, these are sort of archetypal energies that are in a oracle called I may not pronounce this correctly, Dialethea Oracle. The details are in the description box below if anybody's interested. This has a number of archetypes plus a major arcana and the court cards from the tarot deck. But I expressly shuffled and dealt out to get, and then shuffled again to get a number of archetypes for this. So these are archetypes that your higher self recognizes. It's important to have the dialogue with your inner child, and these are how they manifest or how they would be more purified with the inner child. So With the schemer and the warrior and the karma cleanse, I think that most of you, it could be in a workplace, it could be in some sort of social or political cause, it could be in very complex relationships, whether it be a love relationship or family or something like that. There is some energy around where you're always kind of in battle, and sometimes you have to deal with this energy coming at you, which is others scheming, and sometimes you may feel that you've had to scheme or plan in a kind of like a very military-esque type of, planning a campaign. And, depending upon the situation, doesn't mean that anything bad is going on, but it does mean that you sort of carry with you some sort of sense of, how do I stay in this complex environment but not become the thing that I despise or that I'm battling? So your higher self calls a lot on guidance for that and understands the need to cleanse that energy out. But I just feel that you're in battles, you're in negotiations, you're in a range of those things, and your higher self is being internally vigilant to make sure you don't become this energy because you have to mix with it so much for some reason. So I do think that if you've come to the right reading, a lot of you, as I say, are in complex sort of environments in one form or another. Now, your inner child has sort of been very quiet around this, because this is a very adult environment. This is very, as I say, political, social, something like that, very adult environment. So your inner child feels almost unheard and wants to hear itself again, needs to almost go into the silent night, into the sleep state, into the liminal spaces, all of those things to be able to reconnect with who they truly are. I feel they're almost a little bit in hiding, and I don't blame them, to be honest. And yet your higher self is saying, there is the seeker, that this is very much like the Fool card. This is like you're meant to go out on this wonderful journey. You actually have a lot of wisdom. So even your inner child, it's not young. And I think for some of you, you may have been characterized as having had to be older or wiser when you were young than generally. So, it could be, having to have been almost the secondary parent in a family for some reason, or raising, helping raise your younger siblings. Or you just might have come in with a kind of inner knowing, which is why you can be in this environment. And it's also why you have the wisdom to know that you've got to kind of keep making sure that you retain this sort of like freedom, rather than just being, as I say, just becoming the warrior that is through a series of compromises and rationalizations becomes the very thing you're battling. So there's that sort of energy, but it's like your inner child, I don't think feels at this point like it's being heard, and its wisdom is being heard. So I do think your higher self is acknowledging that, or it's saying, inner child, I need you to speak up. And I need you also to listen and connect to your own wisdom, because I can't do this alone. I will become this thing, this environment I'm in, if I don't connect to that innocence. So what we're going to do is we're going to have three parts of this dialogue. We're going to start first with the Serious Tarot, and that's going to be what your higher self wants to say about what it's discerning for your inner child. We're then going to use the Pythia Tarot to get what the inner child has to say in response, and then we're going to use a third deck that I'm calling the Portal Tarot. It's a tarot that doesn't actually have a name on the website that I got it from, but I'm calling it the Portal Tarot because it looks like going through portals to another world. So that will be your conscious self in what it makes of the dialogue and what you can do to manifest the messages of the higher self. So firstly, a little bit more about what your higher self is saying to your inner child. 9 of Cups, Page of Wands, the Chariot, the Star, the Tower of Reverse. Okay, your higher self really loves your inner child. In fact, your inner child, this is why it wants to hear more from it, really, is its source of joy and inspiration. So your higher self is saying, look, I am in this world that is murky and difficult, and I'm calling on my higher guidance and all of that. But you know what, inner child, you're the voice. You're the inspiration. You are that which makes me feel like I can keep exploring, and you bring me the wisdom. You're connecting me to my wisdom. You're connecting me to the destiny. There is something very pure in you, inner child, and you come in knowing what your destiny was. You know what your North Star is. This seeker knows where they're going. But we are in a world, inner child, where change only happens incrementally. So I feel like the inner child here envisages almost a nirvana, almost a perfect world. And your inner child sees a very beautiful world, very wise, but very open. But your higher self is saying we live in the world, inner child. And all you can do is incrementally shift, because if we sort of went more towards it, we could actually break down the beauty of what you're talking about. We have to do it step by step. So just as the seeker needs to go step by step by step, and there is a wisdom in understanding that and hearing the inner voice and getting the rest that's necessary, because it's a long journey. This is a marathon, not a sprint, as I often say. Your higher self is saying, when I am in the midst of the difficulty, I go to you. So in fact, I think this is a very interesting relationship with the inner child. Whatever hurts or whatever you're healing within your inner child, there's still a purity that you have there and a wisdom you have there that your higher self is actually saying is necessary. So it's going to be very interesting to see what your inner child says, and then also what your conscious self, because your conscious self is probably what's really dealing with all of this. Your higher self is trying to make sure it's done in a way that you don't become sort of embroiled in things that take your karma in the wrong direction. And your higher self is always sort of like connecting with the inner child for the purity of the vision. Let's see what the inner child has to say in response to a very loving message, and not a message that says change anything. And quite the contrary, actually. So let's see what the inner child has to say. Two of Pentacles reversed. Temperance reversed. The Emperor reversed. The Six of Pentacles reversed. The Ace of Swords reversed. It's very interesting. Like when we got Silent Night where the inner child is kind of asleep, and then we also have this inner voice where it's like trying to connect to that all of this is reversed. So I think the inner child, the first thing it's saying is, look, I hear you, but I don't feel like I can speak up a lot. I don't even know if I'm really truly being heard. So I think your inner child is sort of questioning your higher self about this. It's saying that this battle in the material world, it's about power and about the use or misuse, more to the point, of power that's got things out of balance. Your inner child is saying, I agree with your higher self that we are partners, equal partners. You don't need to heal me. You don't need to protect me. I am capable of doing that myself. But I feel like the material world and the lack of stability in the material world is quietening your inner child. It's almost saying with the concept here of the inner child sleeping, you can't really reach me through the material things, because I don't want to connect to that. I want to keep my purity and my wisdom. So for that, you have to connect almost in the liminal space. You have to connect in sleep. You have to connect in dreams, higher self, because I don't want to be touched by that. I don't want to be touched by that. I will kind of hide myself away rather than be involved in that. So let's see what your conscious self does to mediate here, because I think your higher self really needs your inner child, but your inner child's going, you know what, I get why you're doing it, higher self. This is the nature of the world, etc. But like I have to protect myself. That's what it sort of looks like. So let's see what your conscious self says in response. Four of Swords, Nine of Swords reversed, Eight of Pentacles reversed, Seven of Cups, Ten of Pentacles. Okay, so your conscious self says it agrees with your inner child that the way for these two parts of your soul to connect are through meditation, sleep, the quiet times. Like you're not going to, the voice of the inner child is not heard by the higher self when it's in the midst of the battles that are very material. So the conscious self says, yes, I have to actually consciously, meditate, do shamanic work, go into the dream state, whatever it is, to connect to the inner child. That is like just because of the nature of the world that you're in. But in doing that, there's a lot of it takes away a lot of anxiety. In fact, the more that your higher self here can connect to your inner child, the more that it cleanses itself just by doing that. Just the sheer act of doing that cleanses the karma. but it has to be done in that space because the inner child has to be protected. It's different. This is a different space to connect than in the material world. It can't follow the rules of the material world. It has to follow the rules of the liminal space. And that gives all the options emotionally and will have an impact on what is being done in the material world. Will actually then provide much better guidance, much better wisdom, and much better options for something that could be lasting. So there's a sense here that your higher self actually needs your inner child a little bit more than your inner child needs the higher self. It's interesting. I didn't expect this to come out in the reading, but that's what it's saying, because your higher self is so focused on the mission. Your inner child is saying, I have to protect the purity. And so, but there is a space. Your conscious self is saying there is a space where the two can unite. And each helps the other in that space too, because I think that the cleansing process that the higher self does to deal with this will also build a sort of resilience in the inner child as well, so that they merge more as equals, as it's saying. So let's have a look at some blessings and opportunities around this. Let's first of all look at some healing. I mean, this is meant to be healing for your inner child, but I'm actually wondering if it's healing for your higher self, to be honest. But take what resonates. So firstly, let's have a look at some healing energy. Say what you mean. Okay, it may be the inner child here. It's not speaking. It needs to speak more. But it could be true of both. This complex environment where the schema energy was there, it could be that like it's speaking truth is difficult. The inner child will always speak the truth. So it could be healing for either. Let's have a look at some inspiration energy. And again, it could be inspiration. I'm feeling like there's inspiration for your higher self and there's inspiration for your inner child. So inspiration for your higher self. The generator, energy, life, possibility, breath. I think this is maybe one of the messages the inner child would give with that wisdom of both the sort of like the seeker and the sage, that the thing about this is it's become too reactive. In this environment that's so complex, it's like what would be better is generating, is being the energy to create the world that you want, not always battling the world that is. So there's something about connecting to that radiance of what the pure guidance is. What was the purity of it, rather than, there's almost a reactive feeling to it. And then for your inner child, oh, it's interesting. This came up for one of the others. The opening, discovery, eureka, path, bridge. Yeah, this creates the opening. This is finding the opening so that two parts of your soul talk together more. Creates the bridge. And this is this. This is like the sense of the liminal space. That provides the inspiration for the inner child too. And the inner child doesn't feel so much like it has to hide. Let's see then a blessing that can occur. Sorry, I almost dropped one then. I always feel that's a sort of sign of like shuffling again. The blessing is a blessing to ease loneliness and bring companionship. So I think this could operate on a couple of levels. If you're in a really complex environment, your higher self is always in battle with that. It may be hard to find friends and collaborators and that equal energy. And the same thing with the inner child. If it feels like it's always having to protect itself, where does it connect? But I think this could also be a blessing to connect the two parts of your soul. Because I think that as I say, the inner child has sort of like, has hidden itself a little bit because of the energy around, that the higher self is dealing with. So there's something about making that connection. That's the blessing for you. Let's get you a couple of spirit guides to help. So we'll get a divine animal, and then we'll also get either an angel or sort of deity energy as well. So an animal spirit to help you. The owl, wisdom. Okay. It's interesting this fell here. Like your higher self, there's nothing lacking in wisdom, and this is all part of you. So the wisdom of the sage is in you, but this is reconnecting you to the wisdom. And again, the owl is a night animal, or, we think of it as a night animal. And it sees in all directions when you're in the liminal space. So I think the owl is here to bring that wisdom, to make that connection occur. And Saint Bridget, passion, fire, growth. Yeah, this is maybe to ignite the passion again, the passion of the seeker. Because it's hard. Like the thing is for you, pole 2, is that you are in a difficult environment. I think you're like, it's really hard to keep that. So Bridget is here to keep you back. And this is the generation. This is, again, the sense of go back to what your purpose is. Go back to what your cause is. You will naturally cleanse yourself and deal with those sort of darker energies. But don't be always reactive to them. Always think about the cause, the passion. And that will reconnect you, particularly in the liminal space, with your inner child, which has this sort of wisdom to bring forward from other lives and so forth. Okay, let's get you some astrology, also some stars to guide your path. The new moon, seeding, plant what you desire. Yeah, this is the thing, the generation. This is like, stop being as reactive. Yeah, and I don't mean that in a critical way. This is for your to help you, because it's like you've taken on a complex mission, I think, in this life. We have the 12th house, yeah, the liminal spaces, like sleep, meditation, shamanic journeying, any of those sort of things, astral travel. You'd be very, very good at this, actually, and that's how you're going to connect to that again. And Taurus. And then that's how it grounds. That's how you create the life that you want. So I think that some of you may have been battling in very competitive environments to try and create the life that you want. Try and create what you want. A place that would be safe for your inner child, a place that would be safe for everything. But you kind of get caught up in how you negotiate and deal with that. But planning the desire for what you want, connecting to your inner child, that's actually what does it. It takes it from being a reactive battle into a creation. And that's what you're meant to be doing. Okay, so to finish off pole 2, I'm just going to draw some magic, practical magic for your higher self, your inner child, or both together. Express your heart, story keeper. Yeah, this is the generator. This is the passion. Somewhere along the way, your higher self knows it. That's why it's wanting to talk to the inner child. Lost the story. Lost the fairy story, lost the creative energy, reconnecting to that through the liminal space, all of that. And, fairy stories are of the liminal space, all of that kind of thing. Get your narrative back, get you to create what it is that you want to create in the world. And so you start to tell your story so that your inner child's voice is louder, so that the voice you have is more creative rather than reactive. So I hope that resonates for you, pole 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Other than that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pole 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Alliance, which talks about important partnerships, agreements, or unexpected connections, bringing fortunate opportunity. So I do feel for this that there is some message from your higher self that an important collaboration, love partner, friend, something like that is coming into the space. And I think this is to reconnect you with your sort of soul vision and so forth. And that there's a similar sort of sense with your inner child, that there's a very strong light worker energy around you, but there's also some sort of a battle, and this is to bring the right person in. This is to tell your inner child that it is soon going to find that kind of liberation. So the reason I'm saying that, so we've got these 2 cards from the Rainbow Oracle, which is a sense of the message and the energy from your higher self. These 2 from the inner child, for your inner child energy at the moment. And then these are archetypes from a new oracle called the Dialethea. I may not be pronouncing that correctly. Oracle, the details for this oracle are in the description box below. This oracle has a number of different archetypes, plus it also has the major arcana and the court cards from tarot. I actually shuffled and dealt out intuitively to get a number of the archetypes for this. So that's what we're looking at. And they're meant to be kind of archetypal energies that have to do with what your higher self wants to say to your inner child and what your inner child is dealing with. So the very interesting thing here is that there is definitely a sense when I look at the Phoenix and the Gorgon, and then this fly free energy here with the inner child, flying free, the Phoenix, that your higher self is wanting to say that something that has been difficult, some sort of battle that has maybe frozen you in place or made it hard for you to move and connect, and it could have been in a love relationship, or it could be in something else that a relationship is coming in. You're about to have that energy come through. And the energy of the Gorgon would then shift from being that which freezes in place, because mythologically the Gorgon, if you looked at her, she made you turn to stone, but she's also a very, very protective energy. So when connected to the vision and to something of the light, then that energy can be unfrozen and you can move forward, and then you have the protective energy because you're on the side of the angels, and your inner child is very tender and very sweet, but like looks a little bit world weary from what's been going on. But here with the new vision and the light worker, you're reconnecting. And it's really interesting. I actually think the faces look so similar here, like the facial structure of the two, and they're from two completely different oracles. So I think the light worker within you, within your higher self, has a new vision that is going to connect to somebody else, whether you have already met this person or whether they're coming in, I'm not sure. But that's what allows you to defrost, to become unfrozen, to fly free, to let your inner child fly free again and reconnect to that sense of connection to the angels, to the light, and so forth. So I do think your higher self is saying to you, you know what, inner child, I felt a bit stuck. I felt a bit alone. And so have you, like lacking in the tenderness, lacking in the love. But we're about to fly. We're about to unfreeze. That's what I want you to know, inner child. So let's have a bit more of the dialogue. So we're going to use 3 different tarot decks. The first tarot deck is going to be a little bit more about what your higher self is saying to your inner child. Then we're going to use a different deck to see what your inner child has to say in response. And then we'll use a third deck to look at how your conscious self mediates between these two in terms of the messages that they're giving each other. So, and in fact, that's a very similar face. I feel like this is because the thing about the Gorgon, the thing about Medusa is she was a wronged, beautiful woman. Like there's a sense of like reclaiming and defrosting from that as well too. There's something here where you felt stuck or stopped, and your inner child has felt it as well too. And has had to kind of self-care to deal with that. But the angels are reconnecting you so that you can fly phoenix-like. Okay, let's get a little bit more of an idea about what your higher self is saying to your inner child. Ace of Cups reversed. The Fool reversed. The Hermit. The Queen of Cups. The Ten of Swords reversed. And I'm just going to say it again. The facial shape is really similar. I think what this is actually showing is, and this doesn't have to be female or male, this isn't about gender, but I feel like this is actually telling you something about, it's like a divine union or something coming in, and it's showing you over and over that this connection is going to like reconnect you to your light work, to your heart. It's going to defrost the injustice of the past. So if you have, struggled in love relationships or in collaborations or family stuff or whatever it is, there is a beautiful energy coming in, and it's showing up over and over. It's showing up as the new vision. It's showing up as the light worker. It's showing up as the freed Gorgon. It's showing up as the Queen of Cups. So there is a beautiful energy meant to come in for you. Now, for some of you, it may be within yourself, balancing the divine masculine and feminine. That is possible. But I think for most of you, it is presaging that, because your higher self says that you've been disappointed around love and connection before, and there's a side of you that thinks, oh, look, I've been around that block too many times. I don't want to know about it. And you've kind of almost withdrawn within yourself, but you can't stay there. That is ending. That this beautiful connection is coming in. So I do feel for most of you, this is probably about love in one form or another. It doesn't have to be romantic love, but it connects to your divine purpose. It reconnects you to the inner child that wants to be free and doesn't, as I say, need to self-care all the time. There's just the end of that is coming with the end of this sort of almost cynicism that's been built up around whether you could even have love, whether you would be dealt fairly in love, or anything like that. And the spiritual work you've done has done a lot of good for you, but it's time now to reconnect to your heart. So let's see what your inner child has to say about this, pile 3. The World reversed. The Hierophant. The Ten of Wands. The Ace of Cups, yeah. Your inner child sees it. Your inner child knows. And then the Two of Cups reversed, yeah. Your inner child is saying, you know what, yes, within, I still have this tenderness, you know, the yummy cup there. You know, I want love, I want connection. I can see that, I can feel that. Many of you may have met this person, I actually think. You don't have to have, but I wouldn't be surprised if many of you have. So your inner child's going, yes, I can see that. I can see that could open that up again for me. And I agree. And I agree that being alone has been too much of a burden with the Ten of Wands there. But your inner child is also saying, but I have to be sure, because something that's happened in the past, it almost feels unfinished. You know, you want to actually make sure you're fully healed from it with the Hierophant. And you want to take wisdom rather than cynicism through. But your inner child says there's something that's still holding me back a bit. There's something that's still tying me up a bit. There's something that's still burdening me a bit. And I want to be able to welcome this. But you know, how do I get to that? Which I think is where you would call upon the light workers and the angels. It would be calling upon other energy. Let's see what your conscious self has to say about it. Two of Swords reversed. King of Wands reversed. Two of Wands reversed. Three of Cups reversed. Six of Pentacles reversed. Okay. What's unfinished? There's something unfinished here about a former relationship, I think. And I think for most of you this is around love, around the patterns of love. Now, if it isn't, it's, you know, around a collaboration or something like that. But it's definitely saying your conscious self says the thing that's the block around all this, with this beautiful energy coming in and this capacity to be free and to fly free and to let tenderness and love and whatever it is in, is that you've still not fully resolved something with a past connection. And it's that connection's coming up as the King of Wands reversed. So there was a power imbalance in whatever this relationship was. And as I say, it doesn't have to be love. It could be work, it could be family, whatever. And you are meant to find an equal with the Six of Pentacles reversed. So there's a sense, I think one of the things that your conscious self is saying, that one of the ways that you'll be able to unblock this, fly free, is when you realize this is not the same, that this is more an equal. But there's something, many of you I think were betrayed actually, or somehow kind of put in a bad situation by a third party or something like that. There's something like that. And it's the thing that blocks at you. You're kind of like trying to protect yourself from that, and your inner child wants to fly free. But it feels like if it looks upon, this is why the Gorgon has come up, because it's like this face, as I say, has been coming up all the way through, and it's actually beautiful, but there is a fear of looking upon it because you'll be frozen again. This is definitely saying, if you've come to the right reading, this will resonate. You've been in a relationship in the past that you haven't fully, I mean, you may not be in it anymore, but you haven't fully sorted through what happened with it because it was overwhelming and it was controlling and it wasn't on the right path for you. So you've got to free yourself from that. You've got to unburden yourself from that so that you can actually see what is different about this, because until you do, it's going to look to you like the Gorgon and you're going to go, here we go again. I want to love, but here we go again. So there's something similar about this energy. I want to love, or I want to collaborate, whatever it is, but it's not the same. And you've got to free yourself from that. That's what your higher self is trying to say. And your conscious self kind of knows it. It knows, it's learned. It doesn't. The good thing about you, Pile 3, is that you don't need to learn twice. The shadow side of that is that sometimes we might think, here we go again, when it's actually different. So let's get you some help with that. Let's first of all get some energy about healing that your higher self could be bringing to your inner child in this situation. Sadness. Yeah, there's sadness. There's a sadness. This is like, this tenderness sort of looks sad, and feeling sort of stuck feels sad. There's a healing from that. It's like accepting that you could actually be happy now. That's a big jump for you. And I'm not having a go. I mean, you've dealt with something that wasn't very nice by the looks of things. So, but this is going to be different. So letting go of the sadness, healing the sadness is important. Let's get you a couple of cards of inspiration. The poignant, harmony, senses, beauty, resonance. I'm going to put that over here because I feel like this is the tenderness, reconnecting to that. What is beautiful in this? It's not this harsh energy. It's something much more gentle and beautiful. It's like a reward, I think. That's why you're meant to sort of phoenix, like fly free again, you know, be able to sort of reach the heights. And the projector, magic, spirit, matrix, reality. This is understanding what's real and what is projected. And the poignant is the way, the inspiration, the sense. You're going to get a sense when you really connect to this person that this is a very beautiful emotional energy, rather than projecting what you got from the matrix before, connecting to spirit, connecting to the angels, all of that sort of energy, so that you don't miss this opportunity. You know, your higher self really wants you to understand something beautiful that's coming in for you. If you haven't already met this person, you're going to meet them soon. Let's see a blessing that's associated with it for you. A blessing on a home. Oh, finding your home. This is so tender, so beautiful. This is really beautiful. And all those green, the heart, like there's something really beautiful. And again, this face is really similar in its structure. This person is going to be your home. Whether it is, as I say, a love relationship or it's a friendship or a collaboration, like this is a very different energy. It's beautiful, pole 3. Okay, let's get you some spirit guidance from a divine animal and also from an angel or other sort of deity energy. So firstly, a divine animal to help you recognize this and allow it in so that you fly free as the phoenix, but connected in this beautiful alliance. Armadillo, groundedness. Okay, so this is nice. This is actually saying, because this is what's worrying you. What's worrying you, and your higher self is sort of saying this to your inner child, is that you're going to be kind of like off with the pixies about this and think it's wonderful, but it'll turn out to be just the same old, same old. This is saying, no, you will be grounded in this. You're going to be sensible in this. But you can still fly free. The two things can actually occur if you're sort of feeling that you can trust it and believe it. So the armadillo is going to help you with that, to know that this is true, to give you evidence that this is true. And an angel or deity energy in your spirit team to help you. Sekhmet, fierceness, destruction, rebuilding. Yeah, this is the phoenix energy. The past is over. This is not like the past. And if there is anything that would threaten that, which is pure for your inner child and pure for this thing, Sekhmet is there to cut through all of that so that you get to the joy, so that you get to the passion, so that you become the phoenix rising, very literally. Okay, let's also get you some astrology to guide you. North Node, you're heading towards something that is your destiny. This is why it's all going to come together. This is like a divine union or a destined partnership of some form. Air. Yeah, and ultimately, though, you'll have a grounded, realistic thing. You're meant to fly. And it's going to be probably a meeting of the minds to start with when it's an air energy. And the 9th house. Okay, so this is going to be, you're kind of a very philosophically similar way of doing it. You may connect through learning in some way or through travel in some way. But this is about expanding your horizons as well. The 9th house is all about that. The planet that rules it is Jupiter. So this is a sense of something benefic. Like this is the message your higher self really needs your inner child to know, that there is something very, very beautiful coming in. Okay, so just to finish off, I wanted to get a card from your higher self to your inner child about its own inner magic, which I think, is just to recognise this beautiful energy coming in. But let's see the last sort of message from the higher self. New beginnings, Lady of Air, lady. Like it doesn't have to be a woman, okay? It's not about gender, but this is saying it over and over and over. It may be this person has air strongly in their chart because we've got the air there and the Lady of Air, but otherwise it's, again, she looks like the phoenix, and then there's a butterfly, it's a transformation. There is this real sense of like blooming energy, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful energy. Like I very strongly feel a very significant and beautiful relationship of some form is coming into your life, and it will unstick you or unfreeze you from things that weren't good, I have to say. And it's part of your life path. So I hope that resonates for you, pole 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.